What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name's Kyle. In this video, April 28th, it's Sunday afternoon here. We just had the NFL draft over the last 3 days. And this video, we're going to basically just go team by team and just kind of look at what they did. We're going to only talk about the fantasy position. So quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. We'll just kind of look at it and just kind of, give you guys a couple thoughts on each thing. And then basically, I'm going to be starting to work on my dynasty rookie rankings tonight and tomorrow. We'll get a rookie update out for you guys. Whether I get that video out Monday night, Tuesday, we'll get it done shortly. But for now, we're just going to go team by team and kind of have fun looking at it through that lens. So let's go ahead and hop into a screen share here. And if you guys want to click through, the table below, you guys can kind of flip through. I'm going to go division by division here. So we're going to start with the Buffalo Bills. And this is our lads. They have such a good depth chart view of everything here. So we'll kind of start with this. And Buffalo, our first team, the AFC East here. And offensively, we don't really need to worry too much. They did get Keon Coleman, though. That was the big one in the first pick of the second round. They have Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel. It's going to be a 3 wide receiver set with these 3 guys. And not a lot of depth, honestly, here. Andy Isabella, shorter, Mac Hollins, but Keon Coleman, an early second rounder. He's a big body kind of, a boundary receiver that can rebound in the red zone. He's going to be a huge threat there. So he's a guy that's probably, I don't know if he's a late first in a rookie drafts, but maybe an early second round pick. And then, they invested some offensive line pieces here, which is nice. But Ray Davis, the 4th round running back, I think he's an interesting guy. He's going to play that big back role and kind of back up James Cook. So if anything happens to James Cook, Ray Davis is a really talented player that can do all receiving, blocking, running the ball. He can do everything pretty well. So for the Buffalo Bills, Keon Coleman is a fun, exciting pick. I don't really love his profile here, but I think he fills what Buffalo needs him to do. He's a Gabe Davis plus type talent. So Keon Coleman and Ray Davis are the rookies that we're looking for here. And then they did grab a couple of UDFAs. Frank Gore Jr. signed with the Bills, and you had a couple of receivers back here. But I like what the Bills did. They were able to fill in the offensive line with some draft picks. They got Keon Coleman, Ray Davis, and then some help on defense. So solid draft by the Bills. Miami Dolphins, real quick. They had a really nice day 3 from what I saw. They added Jalen Wright in the 4th round. They added Malik Washington, the receiver, in the 6th round here, and Taj Washington in the 7th round. They also grabbed Patrick Paul, future left tackle, right, maybe a right tackle for them. I'm not sure what he'll do, but really solid draft here. Jalen Wright's an electric playmaking back. He can make a huge play. He's a good receiver. He can pass block. Doesn't make any it just makes so much sense that he's a Miami Dolphin. His explosive big playability here. So Mostert and Devon Achane are there. I think you're going to see Jalen Wright mixed in, and hey, both Mostert and Achane have not really proven to be super healthy guys. And maybe we see Jalen Wright pushed into a bigger workload if one of those guys gets hurt. But I'm super interested in the slot receiver, whether it's Malik Washington or Taj Washington. I think one of those guys is going to be a hit. I like both of them a lot, and it's crazy to me that they took 2 swings on they're both slot receivers essentially. So we'll see if they can compete with Braxton Berrios. But for fantasy, these guys are backups for this year. It's going to take an injury for Jalen Wright to get moved up on the depth chart. And same thing, I think Malik and Taj, they're going to have to beat out Braxton Berrios. But one of those guys might end up being a hit. So I like both of those slot receivers there. And then a really solid, Chop Robinson, a couple other guys here on defense. Mo Kamara, I thought was a really good pick. I like what the Dolphins did. The New England Patriots, of course, they had a huge overhaul offensively, taking Drake May with the 3rd overall pick. They did go back and get Joe Milton, too, the big-armed quarterback. They also added Jaheim Bell, a really athletic tight end, in the 7th round. Got an offensive right guard here, Layden Robinson. They got Caden Wallace, a left tackle. And then Jalen Polk, a bit of a surprise to see him go as early as he did in the 2nd round, but I think he's an exciting player that could compete for a leading role with this team. And Javon Baker, too. I like him a lot. I don't know. For fantasy, you're probably looking at like a early 2nd round pick, maybe a mid 2nd round pick for Jalen Polk. With Javon Baker, he's probably more like a late 2nd, early 3rd. I like both guys a lot. This depth chart's not very good. Kendrick Bourne's up there in age. He's coming off of, I think, a torn ACL. Demario Douglas is kind of a nice slot receiver, but I like Baker and Jalen Polk to maybe be the future outside receivers of these guys, this team. And with Drake May there, this could be a nice little offense in maybe 2-3 years. They didn't draft a running back, but they got Ramondre and Antonio Gibson. It's a good duo. Offensive line seems to be in decent shape. I like what the Patriots did here. They gave Drake May a chance with this draft class. Got him a left tackle, 2 receivers, a tight end. It's a good class. They did add 1 defensive player here, but mostly an offensive-minded draft from the Patriots. I kind of like what they're doing. The Jets, not really much changed here. They did grab Fashanu, who's probably going to start maybe somewhere on this line. I'm not sure where. Like Tyron Smith, when he's healthy, he's the left tackle. We'll see where Fashanu can come in and play. But the only significant addition here was Malachi Corley, who's going to be the starting slot receiver for Aaron Rodgers. He might have a nice rookie season, more so than someone who wouldn't have a guy like Aaron Rodgers. But Rodgers struggles to get along with rookies, so maybe not. But Corley is a yards after catch kind of guy. He could be a nice mid to late second round pick in your rookie draft and see what happens. The thing that interested me, though, was they grabbed 2 running backs here. Behind Israel Abanikanda, they have Braylon Allen in the 4th and Isaiah Davis in the 5th. So not sure why they invested so much with 2 running backs here, 4th and a 5th round pick. I like both guys a lot here, but we'll see. I'm not sure who's going to win that. Who's going to win that job? And then they did draft Jordan Travis there, the Florida State quarterback. So interesting draft. They didn't have a lot of draft capital. They only grabbed 2 guys in the defense here, a safety and a right cornerback. But we'll see what the Jets do. I don't know if Rodgers is going to help rookies become fantasy relevant. So I think Malachi Corley, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, probably guys that I'm not super excited to draft. But there's your quick thoughts on the AFC East. We'll go over to the NFC East now. The Cowboys didn't draft a running back. Unbelievable. They got Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn, Royce Freeman, Malik Davis, Snoop Connor, and Nathaniel Pete. So they're going to have to sign Ezekiel Elliott or something here. The Cowboys did get a really nice starting left tackle. They got Cooper Beebe, who's going to be their center, maybe a guard, and then another offensive lineman here in the 7th round. But receivers, they drafted Ryan Flournoy. I think he's like Southeast Missouri State. He was invited to the combine. He's an interesting guy that can compete for the number 3, number 4 job. But overall, I don't get it. I don't think they did I don't think this was a very good draft from the Dallas Cowboys here. I think they missed some potential holes, definitely at running back. They probably needed something better than a Ryan Flournoy at receiver. But to me, they must like Jalen Tolbert. Brandon Cooks is still there. So I like the top 3 guys. We'll see if Flournoy can compete. But a heavy defensive draft here. The Cowboys kind of stocked their cupboard here with a 2nd round pick, a 3rd round pick, a 5th round, another 7th round pick. So overall, nothing really for fantasy to note. We'll see if Ryan Flournoy can compete for that number 3, number 4 spot. The New York Giants here, you got Malik Neighbors to fall to you at 6, which I think was a huge, huge win. They drafted Tyrone Tracy, a receiving scat back out of the, I think, he played at Purdue, and he's going to complement Singletary pretty nicely. I think he's actually better than, he's probably going to beat out Eric Gray to be the number 2 back. Super high upside guy. He could be the starter in this offense in a year or 2. So I like taking stabs at Tyrone Tracy. He's a converted wide receiver, kind of in the mold of Antonio Gibson, but I think he could be just as good, if not better, than Gibson. So take Tyrone Tracy if you can. And then Theo Johnson. We don't think Darren Waller's going to play this year. He's expected to retire. Theo Johnson, his combine comparisons were coming out to Jimmy Graham. So super athletic guy. He could be the starting tight end over Bellinger, or at least, a co-share of the starting spot this year. So I like the Giants. What they did here, they grabbed some playmakers at receiver, tight end, and running back. Obviously, Daniel Jones is there. Drew Lock is the backup. They need their future quarterback, but I think for this year, you got some pieces here that should make Daniel Jones and Drew Lock look better than before the draft. They did grab some guys on defense here, too, that I like. Newbin, for sure. Moving on to the Eagles. Eagles had an interesting draft. They grabbed Will Shipley here in the 4th round, big receiver from Florida State, Johnny Wilson here in the 6th, and Aeneas Smith here in the 5th. They need a slot receiver. They did sign Paris Campbell. They brought in Devontae Parker. I like Johnny Wilson as like a big rebound, up, and he's kind of like a big tight end / receiver. He's not going to play tight end for them, but he can be a poor man's, AJ Brown or something like that. But Aeneas Smith there as well. Going to compete for that slot duty. Third receiver role is up for grabs. And the Eagles have lacked that for the last 2, 3 seasons. They need someone to emerge here. So I like two stabs at it, whether it's Wilson or Nia Smith. I like the offensive line additions here. They did need to kind of restock the cupboard there. And then keep an eye on Will Shipley, man. He's a really good, well-rounded running back. He can receive, he can run the ball, he can pass block. I think Shipley, probably better than a Kenneth Gainwell. He's going to be like a decent backup, and if anything happens to Barkley, you're probably going to see a committee with these backs anyway. So we'll see if they can do anything with Will Shipley here, but nothing really too crazy for fantasy. It's still Devonta, AJ Brown, Goddard, and Barkley, but I did like that they added some depth and brought in some competition at those positions. The Commanders had a nice draft, man. Jaden Daniels at number 2. I love Ben Sinnott. I don't know if it's Sino or Sinnott yet, but he's going to be the starting tight end, and I think he's a guy that's worth taking a mid to late second round pick on. I like the left tackle there, Brandon Coleman, and then Luke McCaffrey, man. He's going to come in and compete for the slot duties here. A really fun receiver. Of course, he's related to Christian McCaffrey, and he was productive, man. I think he's got a chance inside track to be the starting slot guy. I don't know if Zacchaeus or one of the veterans can beat him out, but he's a guy that I'm definitely interested in later in the drafts, whether it's round 3 or round 4. But I think Ben Sinnott is a bigger priority than McCaffrey. It's a second round draft capital, second tight end off the board. I think that looks really good. But man, Jaden Daniels is going to be the second quarterback off the board in your rookie drafts, whether it's super flex or 1QB. He might have more fantasy value than the other quarterbacks this year. He's really good running the ball. And man, you give him Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, McCaffrey, Sinnott. You got Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson out of the backfield. There's some pretty nice offense for a rookie quarterback to come in. So I like what they did here. They also invested in the offensive line with free agency here too. So the Commanders are going to be a much better offense in 2024 than they were last year. So there you go. The NFC East and the AFC East. We'll move on to the AFC North. And nothing crazy here. They did draft Devontae Walker, who's going to compete for, I don't know if he's going to beat out Rashad Bateman, but he's going to be their number 4 receiver. So we'll watch for that. He's a guy you can take late in the draft, whether it's, late 3rd, early 4th round, something like that for your rookie drafts. They got a new right tackle here, which I like. And then they did grab Rasheen Ali, who is a really productive running back out of Marshall. You could probably end up taking him in the 3rd, or he might even be there in the 4th round. But, this roster, after Derrick Henry, Keaton Mitchell were coming from an ACL. I think Rasheen Ali is going to be able to get touches right away in this offense and probably be the backup running back to Derrick Henry right away. So stash Rasheen Ali. They grabbed a couple other UDFAs here at receiver, but overall, Devontae Walker, take a dart on him, but I think Rasheen Ali is the guy that you're looking for if you want a Raven. I thought the Bengals had a nice draft. They loaded up the offensive line here. Armarius Mims, Matt Lee. They signed Trent Brown from free agency here. And then they double dipped on tight end. Eric All in the 4th, Tanner McLaughlin in the 6th. I don't know which one. Eric All is the more athletic, kind of exciting upside. Tanner McLaughlin's more of your prototypical tight end. But I think both guys are solid. I just maybe take a chance on one of them. Probably just go with All since he was drafted higher. And then the big one here is Jermaine Burton. Really good player out of Alabama. He had an off-field incident that pushed him down, and honestly, I thought he was going to go farther. So the fact that the Bengals took him that high, this is probably your future number 2 receiver in Cincinnati. So I'm willing to be aggressive on Jermaine Burton. I like him quite a bit. Assuming T. Higgins is gone after this year, if he's traded, that's fine too. But Jermaine Burton, probably the guy you want from this Bengals team. And I think he's probably worth the early to mid second round pick in these drafts here. Very talented out of Alabama. Go watch some highlights. But, sprinkled in some offensive line, sprinkled in a lot of back end help here. UDFAs at the tight end, quarterback, and receiver positions. But it's all about Jermaine Burton here for the Bengals. Cleveland Browns didn't have a lot of draft picks in this draft here. They did bring in Jamari Thrash, a speedy receiver out of Louisville, and he's kind of got like a Tutu Atwell vibe to him. He's a field stretcher, really lightning fast. They're going to find ways to get him the ball. So I don't know for fantasy if he's ever going to be trustworthy, but I like the fit there as kind of like a big boom play guy. Zach Zinter, left guard here. I like the pick. Nothing really for fantasy to note here. They did kind of restock the cupboard at running back. They got Jerome Ford, Nick Chubb, Naheem Hines, Deonta Foreman. They did a lot of their stuff in free agency this year. So from a draft perspective, really nothing going on here offensively from the draft. The Pittsburgh Steelers had a fun one. They lost Deontay Johnson, of course, to the well, they traded him to the Panthers. But Roman Wilson, one of my favorite sleeper receivers, he's going to come in and he's going to be Deontay Johnson right away. I think this is probably one of the biggest sleepers for me. I want Roman Wilson on all my teams in the second round. I think he's got a chance to come in and lead the team in receptions right away. I think George Pickens will probably lead them in yards and touchdowns, but Roman Wilson, if he leads the team in targets, that wouldn't surprise me. I love the offensive line investments here. Zach Frazier and Mason McCormick, Fatanu, really nice offensive line additions here. So that's really the only spot, Roman Wilson, for offense. I think he's going to be on a lot of my teams in the second round of your rookie drafts. That's the AFC North. Let's go to the NFC North. Chicago Bears. They got Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze. Williams is going to be the first quarterback taken in a 1 QB or a super flex league. He should be the first pick in a super flex league unless you had, a stacked quarterback team already. But for the most part, Williams will be the 101 in super flex leagues. Just take him. He might not be perfect this year. It's his first year in the NFL. He's working in a new offense. You got Shane Waldron working in a new offense with this team. Not a lot of continuity for this whole team in general. You're also bringing in Keenan Allen. DJ Moore's there as well. So 3 elite receivers for Caleb Williams. You got 2 pretty good tight ends, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson. I like this offensive setup for Caleb Williams. It's he might be a fringe, top 10, top 12 QB right away. So take Caleb Williams and then take Rome Odunze. I think for the first year here, you're going to give him the JSN, Jackson Smith and the Jigba treatment, where it's like, hey, we're going to basically call it a wash year 1. But if Keenan Allen or DJ Moore get hurt, then you're going to have some big value from Rome Odunze. But starting in 2025, if they don't bring back Keenan Allen, you're looking at Rome Odunze being the 1B. I think he might be more talented than DJ Moore. Where, in prime DJ Moore years, Keenan Allen's on his way out. There's a chance Rome Odunze could be the wide receiver 1 for this team in 2025 or 2026. So take Odunze. He should still be the 3rd receiver off the board. He should still go over Brock Bowers. And then some good offensive line adjustments here. Kieran Amegdije for the Bears in the 3rd round here. And then they added some more guys back here, but these are all UDFAs. So Odunze, get him. Caleb Williams, get him. The Lions here, they didn't really do much on offense here. A left tackle and a right guard, good investments here, but I was actually kind of surprised they didn't draft a receiver. Not surprised that they didn't draft a running back or a tight end, but nothing new for fantasy from the draft from the Lions. The Green Bay Packers, nothing too crazy here. They did get Jordan Morgan, a backup center here, a backup right tackle. And then Michael Pratt in the 7th round, man. I think he's probably going to beat out Sean Clifford. I think he's an exciting pick out of Tulane. And the big one here is Marshawn Lloyd, who in 2025 could be the sole starting running back for the Packers. He's a guy that they're going to throw the ball to a lot. I think he's a better receiving talent than Jacobs. A.J. Dillon's gone. Like, he's not going to play much. I think he's more of an insurance policy this year. Marshawn Lloyd instantly hops A.J. Dillon. So this is a 2-back system. You're probably going to see Josh Jacobs lead the team in carries, Marshawn Lloyd be the primary receiving back, and Marshawn Lloyd is a thumper. I think in 2025 you could see the roles reverse, and Marshawn Lloyd is the 1A, and they bring in another kind of another back to be the number 2 here. But Jacobs, it's only a 1-year deal. They could eat some money and basically just give the keys to Marshawn Lloyd, but this is the guy that I want on all my teams. And it's kind of like, drafting Odunze, where, year 1, we're not going to get the huge return in investment, but starting in 2025, you might get it. And hey, if Josh Jacobs goes down, I think we're all ranking Marshawn Lloyd probably as a fringe running back 1 for that week. So take Marshawn Lloyd. He's a great fit for this Packers offense, and he's a do-it-all receiver. Absolutely love the fit there. Minnesota Vikings, offensively, you get J.J. McCarthy, which is a huge deal. I think he should be the 3rd quarterback off the board. Him or Drake May, whatever one you feel like. I think they're kind of in the same tier, but JJ gets to throw to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and then eventually TJ Hawkinson. He's got Aaron Jones year 1, 2. Drake May is working with a bunch of junk and some, rookies, and the offense is not really established there. So I think you could argue that JJ McCarthy over Drake May for QB3. I like the offensive line additions in the 6th and 7th round, and then really nothing else happened besides JJ McCarthy. So they get a guy that can steer this ship here and kind of play bumper bowling. Maybe Sam Darnold starts, the first couple games, but I'm a huge fan of JJ McCarthy, and I love this fit for the Vikings. And that completes your NFC North. Let's move on to the AFC South. Let me catch my breath here. I mean, nothing really crazy for the Texans here. They got Blake Fisher, the right tackle, which I like. I like Cade Stover as a backup. He's kind of like a poor man's Dalton Schultz, anyways. And then they did add a running back, Jawar Jordan, out of Louisville here. So for fantasy, it's still Nico, Diggs, and Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, Joe Mixon. I was wondering if they were going to get another running back, more capital into a running back, but they didn't do it. So Joe Mixon survives this draft, and they did pay him as well too. So the Texans kind of status quo. They just invested a little bit in the offensive line. The Colts had a pretty fun draft. Adonai Mitchell fell to them hard. I can't believe how far he fell in the second round. He's going to hop Alec Pierce and be the starting right receiver. You still have Josh Downs in the slot, Michael Pittman kind of inside outside as well. But AD Mitchell brings them a perimeter receiver that can do more than what Alec Pierce is, more of a field stretcher. Adonai Mitchell's got a little bit more versatility to his game. He's a good route runner. He's physical at the catch point, a fun red zone target. I can see Anthony Richardson jiving pretty well with AD Mitchell, and who knows? He's probably, he didn't go to the best landing spot, to maximize his value. I mean, if you put him on the Bengals or something where he can go be a wide receiver too for somewhere, that probably would have been his best landing spot. But I think for Anthony Richardson, he provides a really nice target, a little bit more of a go-getter than Alec Pierce would be. But for offense, no running backs were drafted here. No tight ends were drafted here. They have a ton of them, but I like the offensive line investments. They also got Anthony Gold, a potential backup slot receiver here. But it's all about AD Mitchell. I don't know if I want him on my team for fantasy. I think this is going to be a pretty boom-bust situation. As long as Pittman and Downs are there, Adonai Mitchell's probably going to be a guy that just, every other week he has a big game kind of thing. But I like him. I like the talent. He just needs to be more consistent. So it's a good get, though, for the Colts. It's one of those better real-life picks than a fantasy pick. The Jags had fun in this draft here, getting Brian Thomas Jr. in the first round. He's their starting outside receiver. You got Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr., and Christian Kirk. I think the targets are still going to be Kirk, probably Brian Thomas, and then Gabe Davis. They gave Gabe Davis a lot of money, but we know what Gabe Davis is. I think Brian Thomas Jr. offers a lot more than Gabe does. So continue taking Brian Thomas, whether he's the fourth or fifth receiver off the board. Are you taking Xavier Worthy or Brian Thomas Jr.? That's probably the tier that you're looking at. Maybe even a Ladd McConkey pops into that. So still a mid to late first in a super flex league, probably the fifth or sixth pick, in a one QB league. Take Brian Thomas. This is a really good fit. And I think Trevor Lawrence is going to do some really nice things with him. He's kind of like a T. Higgins type player. That's what I've been thinking about. And Trevor Lawrence did play well with T. Higgins. They get a left guard here, and they get Keelan Robinson, an explosive backup running back out of Texas. Could be fun. I think he could beat out Tank Bigsby. I still like Dearness Johnson, but we'll see if they mix in Keelan Robinson. But yeah, just take Brian Thomas Jr. I think you're going to like what you get. The Tennessee Titans, they made a lot of moves in free agency this year. They didn't really need to draft many guys for weapons, at least, but they grabbed J.C. Latham with their first pick, and they added Jaquan Jackson, an exciting receiver here. Probably not a guy that we need to worry about too much. He could be their slot receiver, though. Traylon Burks might be on the move, whether it's traded or released, or I don't even know what's going on with Traylon Burks. But the Titans, they did all their heavy lifting in free agency. Nothing really to note there. So that's the AFC South. The NFC South. The Falcons taking Michael Penix Jr. was it's probably the craziest thing that happened over the entire draft. Unbelievable. I did not expect to see this. I don't think anybody thought this would be an outcome. To take him at 8 over JJ McCarthy, pretty crazy. But hey, he gets to sit for a year or a 2. I think in a super flex league, you're still taking him with a late first round pick. But man, if you're a rebuilding team, I think it makes sense. If you're a team competing, I don't know if it makes sense to burn a first round pick on Michael Penix. Dude's going to be 27 years old when he starts. Assuming Kirk Cousins plays 2 seasons. If Penix gets on the field earlier, things went bad for Atlanta. So we'll see. I think Penix is a really fun arm talent, really good quarterback, but he's had some injury concerns and durability issues for me, where I'm probably just going to let somebody else burn a late first on a backup quarterback. The big difference is in one league, I drafted Jordan Love that one season where Rodgers was there. I drafted Jordan Love in the 3rd round. you're not going to get Michael Penix in the third round. So to me, I'm probably not doing it. But the Falcons did a lot of their heavy lifting in free agency. They added Casey Washington, who I don't even know who that is. He wasn't at the combine or anything. Jason McClellan's fine as a backup, but we're not really interested here. So it's really only Michael Penix, and I think he's, for me, only for a team that's rebuilding and has time to babysit Penix. The Panthers had a lot of fun. They grabbed Xavier Legette on night one, trading up for him with Buffalo. He's a big body outside receiver. He's a fifth-year breakout, which I know is tough for some people. I think he's an early second-round pick in your fantasy drafts, your rookie drafts this year. But he's not really a guy that has a great profile. He had one good season. It was a dominant season last year, but he really hasn't put it together for more than that season. So he's kind of an outlier in that regard. For him to be a first-round pick, though, means a lot. The Panthers did swing and miss last year on Jonathan Mingo, but Legette, kind of like a poor man's A.J. Brown, maybe, is probably the best comp for him. I can maybe see like a bigger, like a big Traylon Burks. Maybe it's another Traylon Burks retread, something like that. So I like Legette. I thought he had nice tape, but it's hard to trust a player that only had one good year as his fifth-year senior. So we'll see. They did grab Jonathan Brooks to be the starting running back. Of course, he's coming off the ACL tear. I think he's going to be the guy in 2025. Starting for this season, though, it's going to be probably Chuba Hubbard to start the year, and they'll transition more to Jonathan Brooks as the season goes along. But draft Jonathan Brooks. I think this is a good fit. You're tying yourself to Bryce Young, and I think this is going to be an exciting offense in 2 or 3 years with Dave Canales at the helm. Draft Jonathan Brooks. He's 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th pick overall. I'm okay not getting Legette, though, because I'd rather get, the Roman Wilsons, the Lad McConkeys, some of those other high-profile receivers than Xavier Legette. Because I think as long as Deontay's there, Adam Thielen there for at least this year, I just don't see the consistency for Legette. They did add an interesting player, Jalen Coker, as a UDFA. Jaden Sheridan, another interesting UDFA. Jack Plummer. They drafted Jatavian Sanders, who fell pretty hard. He might be their starting tight end this year. Tommy Tremble, Ian Thomas, whatever. Sanders is a really athletic pass-catching tight end. So I thought the Panthers drafted awesome. You got Deontay and Thielen, so I think adding a big receiver like Legette makes a lot of sense. Brooks, and this was a nice draft. I think the Panthers are going to be a much better offense in Bryce Young's second season. The Saints didn't really do too much here. They drafted Bub Means, a backup receiver. They got Tylese Fuaga, which they needed a tackle pretty badly. They didn't draft a running back. They grabbed Spencer Rattler. So we'll see. Maybe we see Spencer Rattler play at some point this year. To me, I'd rather grab Spencer Rattler in the third round of my Superflex draft than take Michael Penix in the first, something like that. But overall, nothing too crazy here from the Saints. Nothing to really note. New Orleans Saints, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs had some fun in this one. They grabbed Jalen McMillan out of Washington. He's going to be competing with Trey Palmer for that third receiver role. Kind of a similar guy, fast field stretching type receivers, a little bit smaller body. But Tampa Bay really invested in the offensive line here. They added left guard from the Giants in free agency, and then they drafted a new center, Graham Barton, and they drafted a potential left guard backup here. So competition there. I like the additions on offensive line. They grabbed a tight end, Devin Culp. I think he was out of Washington as well. He's an interesting guy. I don't think he's going to beat out K. Dotton or anything. But then Bucky Irving is going to compete for the RB2 duties. I think this is a big win for Rachaad White. That's not a lot of competition for him. So continue drafting Rachaad White. Bucky Irving didn't have a great combine. Really good production at Oregon, but I just don't know if he has what it takes to be a feature back at the next level. But I think he's a capable backup. So I like what Tampa Bay did here. They did add some defensive players here in the second and third round that I think are going to be huge difference makers for them. And then Graham Barton to lock it down at center is a big deal. So that's your NFC and AFC South. We're going to finish up with the AFC West here. The Broncos had a really nice, quiet draft here. Bo Nix to start the draft. They were kind of handcuffed into that one. After Penix went, J.J. McCarthy went, they had no choice to take Bo Nix. They couldn't go without it. So I like it. It's a good fit. He is kind of, to me, I think he's a Derek Carr kind of type player where he can dink and dunk and get the ball to the receivers quickly, the running backs quickly, the tight ends. He can execute an NFL level offense. So I think he's the perfect fit for Sean Payton's offense. I really like that they were able to pair Troy Franklin with him on the outside. He's going to come in and compete with Josh Reynolds. Who knows? Cortland Sutton might, he might hold out still, and we'll see what happens here. So Troy Franklin, maybe he's one of the top receiver steals in this whole draft class. So he's probably a late second, early third round pick. I think I'm excited about Troy Franklin being back with Bo Nix. You've got Audric Estime, who I like a lot. I think he could be a sleeper. He could be the banger back in this system. Sean Payton's always used two running backs, and Estime could be that Mark Ingram type that Sean Payton has used a ton in the past here. I know he didn't have a great 40 time, but everything else, his tape and everything looked really good for Estime. So I like the fit there. He's going to be the backup to Javonte Williams. And then another receiver in the 7th round, Devon Vale. Don't really need to pay attention to that. Really nice draft, though, from the Broncos. They got Nix, Franklin, and Estime. I like what they were able to do. The Chiefs, man, Xavier Worthy, exciting pick, man. Who knows what's going on with Rashee Rice? I think Xavier Worthy is going to be very frustrating for fantasy, but also so rewarding on those games where he, goes 3 for 115 and 2 touchdowns, something like that. But they're going to find ways to manufacture him the ball. He's small. That's really the only thing that's the issue with Worthy is he doesn't weigh a lot. He weighs 165. If he gets that up into the 170s, upper 170s, I think we could be a lot more comfortable about it. But you're probably looking at the 4th or 5th receiver off the board, whether you want Brian Thomas Jr. or Xavier Worthy. It's kind of a preference fit, but I think this is a huge win for the Chiefs. This might be one of those things too, where it's better for real life football than it is for fantasy football because you still have Kelsey there. Well, maybe for a year or two, but Worthy could be the leading receiver that we've always wanted for the Chiefs. And then really, they drafted Jared Wiley here, which is a nice backup tight end. He's going to compete with Noah Gray. Otherwise, nothing else really threatened anyone's position. So still locked in on Pacheco, still locked in on Marquise Brown, Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, maybe. But looking good for Patrick Mahomes this year. I think that's the big outtake for me. Is if you're drafting best balls and whatnot, go just get Patrick Mahomes and then try and stack guys as best you can. The Raiders, they were the losers of the draft. They missed all 6 quarterbacks at 13. That's pretty rare for 6 of them to be off the board by pick 13, but there they were all gone. So they went with the best player on the board, and that just happened to be Brock Bowers. So Bowers is interesting. We're going to be looking at a 2 tight end system here out of Luke Getsy. I think both Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer can have their use. I'm going to assume that Brock Bowers is more of the slot receiver. That's the only way that this makes a lot of sense to get Devontae, Jacoby, Bowers, and Mayer on the field all at the same time. That's how I'm going to view it. Bowers loses a little bit of juice in this. We still need a future franchise quarterback for the Raiders, so you're gambling on them figuring that out. We could have a few lost seasons for Brock Bowers, but hey, if you need a tight end and you're up to pick 4, 5, 6, wherever, I think you can do it in a super flex league. He's probably a late first now, though, so not the best outcome for Brock Bowers. I do like the addition of Dylan Lobby here, but the big winner was Zamir White, man. They didn't draft anybody serious here. Dylan Lobby's a receiving back. He's going to beat out Amir Abdullah for the 3rd down role. So huge win for Zamir White. Dang it, Brock Bowers, man. We wanted something a little bit something juicier, but it is what it is. Let's look at the Chargers. Thought the Chargers had a pretty nice draft. They found values where they could. They're going forward with J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards as their starting running backs. Isaiah Spiller is there, but they draft Kamani Vidal out of Troy in the 6th round. And I liked Troy. I liked Vidal quite a bit. He played at a small school, so he didn't have the best competition, but his tape was really impressive. I think he could be a guy that, gets more work as the season goes on. If Gus or J.K. Dobbins aren't looking good, they got to see what this guy can do. So he's one of my favorite sleeper running backs in this draft class. And then, Ladd McConkey. I think he's right in that same tier for me of Worthy, Brian Thomas Jr., and Ladd McConkey. And I might actually take Ladd McConkey because this dude could lead their team in receptions right away. We're talking Emmanuel Sanders basically for Justin Herbert, which is super exciting. They didn't stop there. They drafted Brendan Rice, Cornelius Johnson. They found some good values on some players that can play. So I'm excited about it. Take Ladd McConkey in any draft that you can. I think he's going to be the real deal, and he's probably going to lead the team in targets right away this year. So very excited about it. But man, take your darts on these Chargers. Vidal, McConkey, maybe Brendan Rice. I think I like Rice better than I like Cornelius Johnson. But overall, the Chargers, they got Joe Alt and a bunch of weapons here to compete and make this offense better. So we'll see what they do. Jim Harbaugh in his first year, pretty exciting stuff. And then we're going to finish up here with the NFC West. the Arizona Cardinals. Marvin Harrison Jr., baby. So he should be the first overall pick in a 1 QB league. He should be the second overall pick in a Superflex league. And I'm in a Superflex league where I have Mahomes, Dak Prescott, and Baker Mayfield. I'm probably taking Marvin Harrison Jr. with the first pick in my rookie draft. It was just one of those weird years where I won a championship and I acquired a pick that just happened to be the first overall pick. So it's going to be fun getting Marvin Harrison Jr. on a team that just won a championship here. So take Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't need to tell you to do that. You're just going to do it and have fun doing it. The one that is really cool, though, is Trey Benson, man. I love James Conner here, and the Cardinals really needed a backup running back, and they got a good one. Kind of like Marshawn Lloyd, where it might not happen right away this year, but we know James Conner misses games, and we're probably going to be ranking Trey Benson pretty high in those games where James Conner misses. So I think Trey Benson's probably the second running back off the board. You can take him as high as pick 11, 12, 13, 14 in that range. I think he's a late first, early second round pick. Take Trey Benson. It's an exciting offense, man. Kyler Murray, Trey Benson, Marvin Harrison Jr. You're kind of locked into the next 4 or 5 years being really good and exciting for this team. And then Trey McBride's there. They did grab Tip Raymond, who's going to be the tight end too, as a nice blocker. This could be really nice. I think the Cardinals are an exciting team as soon as this year. So we'll see what they can do. But draft Marvin, draft Trey Benson. The Rams. The wrong LA team took Blake Corum, but it is what it is. Blake Corum comes in. He's going to be the backup to Kyren Williams. Maybe it's a – McVay's just always kind of done a one heavy running back thing where he doesn't really split the duties up unless it's a weird committee of like Royce Freeman and Ronnie Rivers and Darrell Henderson. But for the most part, this is still Kyren Williams' team. But I think stylistically, Corum plays a lot like Kyren Williams, so that's probably why they took him. I think the fit is very similar. Corum, he did lose some value here, though. He was a high draft pick in the 3rd round, but behind Kyren Williams, I don't think that he's gonna beat him. And Kyren Williams is locked in there for another couple of seasons. So I think it's a long wait for Corum to beat out Kyren Williams. He's probably a late second, early 3rd round pick in your rookie drafts. Otherwise, nothing really else to note here. They did draft the Texas receiver Jordan Whittington, a couple guys on the offensive line. The Rams did really nicely, though, with Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. I like those picks quite a bit. The 49ers. This was like the other surprise of the night on round 1. Ricky Pearsall being a 1st-round receiver by the 49ers of all teams. So, they value his blocking ability and his athleticism. He's going to come in and be a starting receiver for them. He should be able to beat out Jawan Jennings. They also drafted another slot receiver, Jacob Cowing. But where I'm putting Ricky Pearsall, I don't think he's quite in that one tier I've been mentioning with Worthy, Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas Jr. I think he's in the next tier. He's kind of in that tier with A.D. Mitchell, maybe Jalen Polk, a couple of those other guys. So he's probably a mid-second round pick for me. I'll see where my rankings come out. And again, I'll get that out probably tomorrow night for you guys. But Ricky Pearsall, a fun, exciting receiver. And hey, if they move Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel, we got something here. So I think he's going to jive pretty well with Brock Purdy. They did draft Isaac Guerendo. He was the fastest running back at the draft, the combine here. So he's an exciting player. He could be the RB2 behind Christian McCaffrey, but we'll see. I think you can take a shot on him. He's more of like a late 3rd round pick. And then I mentioned Jacob Cowing. He's a little small. I don't know, maybe a 4th round dart on him. Because if they do move Ayuk or Deebo, Cowing would move up to wide receiver 3. So exciting draft class here as they got some weapons. They kind of restocked the cupboard here for Brock Purdy, and they added a right guard here. And then last but not least, the Seattle Seahawks. No receivers drafted. They got some UDFAs here, George Holani and another running back. They didn't really do much here. They drafted a backup tight end, A.J. Barner. So I like the offensive line investment here with Christian Haynes, a couple of UDFAs. Heavy defense draft, though. Byron Murphy, Trice Knight, Tyrese Knight, and Nehemiah Pritchett, DJ James. Really solid draft for the Seahawks for not having a ton of picks. I think they did. They actually had a lot of picks. It was mostly later in the draft. But Seahawks are going to keep the steady quo. They got Geno Smith and Sam Howell duking it out. We'll see what they can do. But hey, that's it. That's the quick team-by-team analysis here. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys had any thoughts on some of the things I mentioned, and if you guys like players or don't like any fits, let me know what you guys think. I will be getting my rookie rankings updated on the website this week. We'll get some updated dynasty drafts. And hey, man, I'm just glad that we know where everybody is now, and we can do some best ball drafts and kind of have fun, start doing some real mock drafts and things like that. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you guys are new. We'll see you next time. Peace.